this presentation in order to give you some advice regarding writing your final paper, and I realize that a number of you are in nursing, and so humanities papers are a little bit different, and I did upload that assessment criteria. I don't use rubrics in that sense because a humanities paper is it's based on a mixture of factors, the way I mark it. So I'm going to go through what my expectations are, and if you have any further questions, you can contact me. Start with the overarching question of what makes an academic paper. So there's all kinds of writing out there, as you're well aware, fiction, nonfiction. Academic writing is a very specific type of writing, so it's not simply your opinion, although obviously your opinion can be in there in terms of your final judgment on a topic, but it's not simply an opinion. Now, I've often said there are opinion writers out there in papers, and that's a great gig if you can get it, but that's not what an academic paper is. You're making an argument and proving it, and so it's based on research. That's the foundation of it. So if the research isn't good, the paper isn't going to be good. So I'm going to be talking about how you go about researching in a little bit. The other aspect is critical thinking and analysis. So this is at the base of post-secondary education, the idea that you're not simply stating opinion, you're not simply describing something, you're analyzing it, you're using higher order thinking, critical thinking. And so I've often said a beautifully written paper with good research is a B, high B paper, but to be an A paper, it has to show that critical thinking. So as I said, research is at the base of it, and so at the base of that in academic writing is peer-reviewed sources. So peer-reviewed sources are material that has been read and vetted by scholars, so it appears in journals and books. And so the easiest way to access and know it's peer-reviewed is to go through the library databases. That's just the easiest, quickest way to do it, and use peer-reviewed journals. And they're readily available. Now, I say this all the time, and yet I still get it, where people just Google sources on the internet. Now, I think if you sit and think about it, you'll know why this is unacceptable. So one of the beauties of the internet is it's a democratic forum. Anybody can write anything, but that's also its weakness, so that anybody can write anything. So we need to know we're looking at sources that are trustworthy by people who are educated in that area. And so, so Wikipedia is not a source that you can use. Now, sometimes Wikipedia at the bottom has a bibliography, and those are sources you could use, but the Wikipedia itself you can't use. And so this is very, very important, and your bibliography will tell me what your sources are. So if it is not based on peer-reviewed sources, I will send it back to you. So save us both that trouble and just use peer-reviewed sources right from the beginning. So in an academic essay, you need to pay attention to both style and structure. So it needs to be well written, it needs to be well structured. And so I'm just referring to basic grammar and paragraph breaks. So I do sometimes see with students where they just write in one long column. You need to have paragraph breaks for ease of reading. The typical rule of thumb is that one is the idea of one idea per paragraph. That's not hard and fast rule, but that's the easiest. And of course spelling, and that's easy in this day and age to get your spelling right. Now, I know all professors are different, but I would say there's nothing wrong with the sandwich. If you learned the sandwich in high school, introduction, body, conclusion, absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's still the way many, many articles are written. And so I find this to be a good rule of thumb for just organizing your ideas, to use this structure if you're in doubt. So I would recommend using that structure. Go through the process step by step. So the obvious, pick a topic. I have put a list of potential topics on Blackboard for you. If you want to write on a different topic, you can do so, but you need to check with me first so that I can figure out if it's an acceptable topic. And as I was saying, in terms of the easiest way to make sure that you're not simply describing or stating an opinion is to ask a question and then answer the question in your paper. So I'll just give an example. Is religion good for mental health? That might be your question, and then you answer it in the paper. So that stops you from doing simply a descriptive paper. So pick a topic. I really recommend that you write on something, obviously, that you find interesting, and if it comes from your own sort of academic background, that's great, as long as it fits within the course topic. So pick a topic, find sources. Now this seems obvious, but sometimes, and this has happened to everyone I know, you find a topic you find very interesting, but there's no sources. And so if that's the case, you really can't do it unless you want to do a PhD. So, you need I always recommend choose a topic where there's lots of sources. It just makes your life easier. So use the library search engines. You can use supplementary sources such as newspapers, but the base of the essay should be academic peer-reviewed material. So the next step, read the sources and take notes. I always recommend that you write a pencil or pen and just take notes. This is a tried and true method for remembering things, and it's a way of thinking through things as you're reading. I suspect some of you are already doing it with your course pack. I always do that, just make notes in the margins. It's a good way of thinking through ideas. And as you're reading, you're starting to come up with different concepts. Then spend time thinking about your topic. This seems obvious, but I think gets left out sometimes because it's not quantifiable. But, I find mindless activities good for this. When I used to do a lot of photocopying, I came up with a lot of my best ideas. Go for a long walk and just mull over the things you've been reading and what you want to say. I recommend that you write an outline. I certainly always use an outline. As soon as you get into longer papers, this is just the easiest way to organize your ideas. And it can change and you can move things around, but it's just a way of starting to organize your thoughts so that they're flowing logically. And then write a first draft. As we've discussed, you use MLA or APA citation style, so you need to cite sources throughout the paper. The idea of citation of sources is that the reader can then look them up if they want to do that. If I get a paper that has no citations throughout the body of it, I will send it back. I need to see that your ideas are based on your research. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky sometimes. So if you're directly quoting, you can do that and put it in quotation marks and then have the citation. If it's a longer quote, you need to use block quotation style where it's in a kind of a block form, single spaced. But I have to emphasize, do not overdo quoting. I always say only use it for your key points. Otherwise, paraphrase the ideas in your own words and cite them. Okay, so this is a learning process to learn how to do this, and that's why drafts are good. So you can go over it, reread it, fix the flow, and so on. Write a bibliography. You can also write the bibliography at the beginning if that's easier for you to get it out of the way. It's totally up to you, but you need a bibliography. Then proofread, ideally after setting it aside for a few days. So this is one of I'm going to just try, as I always do, to get you to not do a last minute paper. I know that's tempting to procrastinate and do that, but if you can do it ahead of time, that gives you time to reread it more objectively and to see if things are flowing. So I highly recommend you do that. Have someone you know who's a good writer read it and comment. Sometimes I know people's parents help them with this, sometimes it's a friend, but having an outside eye is also really helpful because they can point out if there's a leap of some kind. It may be obvious to you, but it may not be obvious to the reader, and having an outside eye can be very helpful if you have access to that. And contact me if you have any questions or need to work through an idea. I'm happy to do that with you if you have any questions about any of what I've been talking about here. So writing a paper is challenging, and it's a process. There's no perfection in this game. Everybody who writes is always trying to improve. And so no one's expecting perfection. So if you have any questions about this paper or your topic or working with ideas or anything like that, please just get in contact with me. And last but not least, celebrate. You have just undertaken a very difficult task in writing an essay. It may not be obvious to others, but it takes a great deal of effort, as we all know. And so celebrate, have a nice meal, go for a walk, relax, pat yourself on the back. This course is about health and healing, so we want to keep stress to a minimum in this course. And so I hope you'll celebrate your accomplishment.